In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and at the hands of Diddy.
We are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
The courtroom was so silent. It felt like the quiet could burst your eardrums. Every seat was filled, reporters, spectators, and legal teams, all waiting anxiously. Then Janice Combs, the mother of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, slowly walked to the witness stand. As she sat down, time seemed to stand still. Every eye was fixed on her, the woman who, for decades, had been Diddy's most loyal defender. But today, everything was about to change. She was prepared to give testimony that could shatter his public image in an instant, and finally expose a dark empire that had long been whispered about behind closed doors.
Thought Diddy would be throwing all his celebrity mates under the bus.
I mean, that could potentially be coming when it's time for court and when it's time for him to testify. But what we're seeing right now is how important public relations really are to Sean Combs. He's desperately trying to control the narrative behind bars, allowing his attorneys to do documentaries.
Diddy sat still, his jaw clenched and hands gripping the edge of the defense table. Earlier, the flashes from reporters' cameras outside the courthouse had been nonstop. But inside, the tension was far more intense. As Janice Combs adjusted the microphone before her, you could almost feel her son's eyes locked on her. This wasn't a family disagreement. This was something far more serious. Something that could rewrite the legacy of Sean Diddy Combs forever. And when she finally began to speak, her words were piercing, sharper than anything a lawyer could deliver.
What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is he's got a lot of enemies.
What could drive a mother to turn against her own son? That unspoken question hovered in the room as Janice's voice, steady but filled with emotion, echoed through the courtroom. She began to share things most parents would never dare admit. Private moments and conversations that hinted at a man whose drive for success had crossed into something far more troubling. He told me once, she began, her voice cracking just slightly, the world is full of people who need to be used. That's how business works. Mom, sometimes people get hurt. It's just business. The courtroom gasped. It was a chilling moment. This wasn't the Diddy the public knew. The smooth-talking mogul, flashing his $1 million smile at music awards. This was a different image entirely. A man who, according to his own mother, saw people, even friends and family, as tools in his relentless climb to power. Janice's testimony was cutting. It stripped away the carefully polished image her son had spent decades building.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, shoot.
Then, like a sudden bolt of lightning, Janice dropped a revelation that stunned the entire room. She spoke of what some have only whispered about, Diddy's so-called blackmail archive. A hidden collection of damning videos, documents, and recordings allegedly uncovered during recent federal raids on his properties. I didn't believe it at first, she admitted, her hand shaking slightly. But when I saw what they found, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Was this archive the reason she had finally come forward? After years of standing by her son, had she seen something that changed everything? What she described painted a dark picture. A powerful empire built not just on talent and ambition, but on secrecy, manipulation, and fear. As her words settled over the courtroom like a heavy fog, Diddy's legal team whispered urgently among themselves. But by then, the damage was done.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head.
Then came the darkest revelation yet. The connection to Diddy's infamous freak-off parties. For years, these exclusive gatherings have been the subject of hushed rumors in the entertainment world. lavish, secretive, and filled with stories of blurred lines and troubling behavior. Most dismiss them as wild exaggerations. But under oath, Janice Combs described something far more disturbing, something impossible to ignore. She spoke about visiting her son's homes during these events, recalling scenes that left her deeply unsettled. Women who appeared confused and out of place, rooms that were off limits and heavily guarded by staff. "I saw things I didn't want to see," she said quietly. "But I told myself it wasn't my place to ask questions. I was his mother. I wanted to believe he wasn't doing anything wrong." The courtroom fell into silence once again, this time heavy and suffocating. Her words suggested something heartbreaking. Had she known deep down that something was wrong all along? Had she stayed silent out of love and loyalty, only to now witness her son's empire unravel? Or, some wondered, was her testimony driven by fear? Whispers had circulated for years about people close to Diddy, who were silenced when they got too close to the truth. Could Janice have been speaking now as a way to protect herself? As she continued, her voice grew firmer. Her hesitation gave way to clarity. She spoke of a growing sense of unease that had built over time, especially as lawsuits and accusations began stacking up. There were too many coincidences, she said, her tone suddenly cold. Too many women coming forward. Too many stories that all sounded the same.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at it.
The atmosphere in the courtroom grew heavier as Janice was questioned about the federal raids on Diddy's properties. Raids that had reportedly uncovered a disturbing amount of evidence tied to his alleged actions. Janice chose her words carefully, likely following legal advice. She didn't reveal much, but she didn't deny the existence of what had been found either. It wasn't just the nature of the allegations, exploitation, abuse of power, that shocked the courtroom. It was the scale. Federal agents had reportedly seized thousands of items, documents, photographs, and video recordings. For months, there had been whispers of a secret archive, a disturbing collection of what some called trophies. Now, with Janice's quiet confirmation, those whispers turned into a roar. What exactly was in that archive? How far did Diddy's influence reach? And just how long had he been able to operate without consequence?
Look at Diddy, for instance. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at him. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at, he has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much, but what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on.
The focus then shifted to Diddy's infamous private parties, events some in the industry had long described as disturbing spectacles of excess and secrecy. According to Janice, these parties weren't just about luxury or indulgence. They were about control. There were rooms you couldn't enter without his permission, she revealed. And there were women there, women who didn't look like they wanted to be. Her words sent a chill through the room. Could this be the link that tied Diddy's personal lifestyle to criminal enterprise he was now accused of running? For years, Diddy had projected an image of untouchability, a charismatic, powerful man who always stayed ahead of controversy. But with every word Janice spoke, that image began to unravel. She described a son who had mastered the art of manipulation from a young age, a man who knew how to bend people to his will, and enjoyed doing so. But her testimony raised a haunting question. How much had she known all along? And why was she speaking out now, after decades of public loyalty?
Same thing for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the interesting thing about the Epstein and the theory about Epstein is we know he filmed people for sure on that island. He has a lot of movies, a lot of films of people that are very, very powerful political figures, and entertainers, business people. So do you really believe that Jeffrey Epstein himself? And
of course not.
Of course not.
Yeah.
The speculation didn't stop with Diddy. Janice's testimony also hinted at deep fractures within their own family. She spoke of strained relationships, moments when her son's behavior had driven a wedge between him and even those closest to him. And then came a mention of a lawsuit that had once rocked the music world. Kirk Burroughs, former president of Bad Boy Entertainment, had accused Diddy of using threats and violence to gain full control of the label. Janice's name had surfaced in those claims too, with whispers that she may have played a role in the scheme. So now, many were left wondering, was Janice testifying to truly make things right? Or was she trying to separate herself from the damage as it all came crashing down? Was this a mother seeking redemption or simply self-preservation?
Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart, super business. He's very successful.
As the day wore on, the courtroom buzzed with tension and speculation. Reporters scribbled furiously, trying to capture every explosive detail of Janice Combs' testimony. But the most unsettling part wasn't what she revealed. It was what she chose not to. There was a sense she was still holding something back, something too dangerous or too personal to say aloud. What else did she know? And how much more was she willing to share? For Diddy, this was no longer just a courtroom battle. It had become a fight for his legacy, his entire identity. But as his mother's words chipped away at the empire he had so carefully built, one thing became undeniable. Whatever the truth was, it could no longer be hidden. And as the courtroom adjourned for the day, one question echoed in every mind. How much darker could this story get?
People I don't think realized was he had cameras all over the place, unbeknownst to them. And now he has all that footage, supposedly. This is what I'm told. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if, you're a huge iconic, TV star or movie star, and you're in some very, very...
If Janice's testimony shocked the courtroom, the fallout outside its walls was even more devastating. It wasn't just about a mother turning on her son. It was about the possible unraveling of an entire family legacy. Because if she, the woman who had stood beside Diddy for decades, could help bring down his empire, what did that say about the rest of the Combs family? Were they simply bystanders? Or, as some rumors suggest, were they active participants in something much larger and far more disturbing? That brings us to Kirk Burroughs, co-founder of Bad Boy Entertainment. His lawsuit against Diddy is shocking on its own. He claims he was forced out of the label in the 1990s after a violent confrontation involving a baseball bat and a signature signed under duress. But what's even more disturbing, Burroughs alleges that Janice Combs, the matriarch, the public face of grace and support, was actually the one pulling the strings. According to him, she played a central role in orchestrating the takeover of the label, using her influence behind the scenes while keeping her image clean in public.
I don't know this, but it just seems very suspicious when you go through and you look at in the history of different people that can make you go away if listen, I've worried about some of the things that I talk about on my show.
The details of Burroughs' claims are chilling. He says that after Diddy allegedly forced him to sign over his shares, those shares didn't just vanish. They were quietly transferred to Janice. On paper, she wasn't even in the room. But Burroughs insists she was a mastermind, steering the entire operation while preserving the illusion of innocence. And this wasn't just about business. Burroughs claims that the Combs family deliberately sabotaged his career, blacklisting him from the music industry, leaving him financially ruined and eventually homeless in New York City shelters. If any of this is true, it raises an unsettling question. Has Janice been protecting her son all these years? Or has she really been protecting herself? Was her emotional testimony an act of conscience, or a calculated move to distance herself as Diddy's empire begins to collapse? And this isn't the only mystery surrounding the case. There's also the disappearance of Victim 3, a key witness set to testify against Diddy. Federal prosecutors have admitted they can't locate her. Her attorney has gone silent, and the timing couldn't be more suspicious. This witness was reportedly ready to share deeply personal, damning details that prosecutors believed would prove a long-standing pattern of abuse. Now she's vanished. Was she afraid? Or is something far more sinister happening behind the scenes?
You know, attorneys say that this is the first time that they've met since 2018 when she attended the funeral for Kim Porter, which is the mother of Sean Combs' 3 children. So to watch Sean Combs watching her was really interesting because they haven't seen each other in at least 6 years. But he can't say anything. You know, this is a moment for him where he has to be silent. And right now we're hearing what she says in terms of what happened during the course of their over 10-year relationship.
It's hard to ignore the unsettling coincidence of victim 3's disappearance, especially given the high-profile nature of this case. Some sources believe it's no coincidence at all, but rather part of a disturbing pattern surrounding Diddy's inner circle. Over the years, several former employees and close associates have spoken, some anonymously, about being forced to sign non-disclosure agreements under pressure. These agreements were often paired with veiled threats, financial ruin, blacklisting, even physical harm. One former bodyguard, speaking off the record, claimed there was a calculated system in place, one designed to ensure silence and loyalty. If you didn't play by the rules, he said, you were removed from the picture. Could victim 3 have fallen victim to the same system? And then there's the evidence. Federal agents reportedly seized massive amount of material from Diddy's properties earlier this year, hard drives, private recordings, and detailed logs from events held in his homes. Though much of it remains sealed under court order, insiders describe its contents as deeply disturbing. Some even claim this evidence could implicate not just Diddy, but other powerful figures in the entertainment world. If victim 3 was about to connect those dots with her testimony, could that be the real reason she vanished?
Is he showing any reaction to what she is saying on the stand?
I can tell you that immediately, the moment she opened her mouth, you could see that Combs was listening intently to everything that she has to say, as well as those jurors. People know that she was that star witness, the key person in all of this. When you think about that civil suit that came out in 2023, that was settled the day after, she really is the person that connects all the dots.
The speculation only grows from here. Online sleuths and independent investigators have noticed a strange pattern in Diddy's past legal troubles. Lawsuits that disappear overnight, settlements shrouded in secrecy, and witnesses who suddenly fall silent. In one case, a staff member who accused Diddy of abuse suddenly withdrew the claim after receiving an undisclosed payout. All of this has led many to believe there's a larger effort at play, a coordinated attempt to keep the truth buried. Could this be what happened with victim 3? And if so, how far does the cover-up go? Then there's the ever-lurking rumor of Diddy's blackmail archive, a secret trove of recordings, photos, and documents allegedly used to control those around him. Whispers of its existence have circulated for years. Some believe it's the reason many have stayed silent. Could this be why victim 3 never made it to court? Did someone reach her before she could speak? It's a chilling thought and raises a much bigger question.
And again, just to reiterate, what is a freak-off? The freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21. She was young. She didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
This culture of fear isn't new. It's been following Diddy for most of his career. Former employees, business partners, and industry insiders, many choosing to remain anonymous, have spoken about the atmosphere around him. Loyalty, they say, wasn't just expected, it was enforced. But now, the silence seems to be cracking. More and more people are stepping into the light, and it's becoming clear. This story isn't just about one man's actions. It's about the system he built to protect himself, one that may finally be unraveling. And at the center of that unraveling is Cassie. Her explosive lawsuit last year was the first domino to fall. Her claims of abuse and manipulation shook the music industry. But there may be more, much more. Sources close to the case say Cassie kept a secret diary during her time with Diddy. If it exists, it could contain first-hand accounts of what she endured, day by day, year by year. That journal could be the missing link, the smoking gun. Could reveal truths even Janice doesn't know? And is that what Janice fears most? That her son's former partner might expose the full, unfiltered reality of what happened behind closed doors?
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced as
Yeah,
well.
she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean.
Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere has shifted into something almost theatrical. Thick with tension, silence, and barely contained emotion, Diddy sits pale and visibly rattled. The trademark confidence that once defined him is gone, replaced by something far more human, dread. As Janice's voice echoes through the room, the impact is undeniable. Her testimony isn't just damaging his defense, it's sending a message to others. It's safe to come forward. And already, that message seems to be working. Whispers are growing. More victims, more insiders, more stories waiting just beyond the edge of public view. If this is only the beginning of the trial, it begs a question. How much more is still hidden in the shadows of Diddy's empire? But make no mistake, this case is bigger than one man. It's about a culture, a system, one that has protected the powerful and silenced the vulnerable for far too long. It's about voices that were ignored, lives that were derailed, and truths buried beneath layers of wealth and celebrity. Now, with the cracks in that foundation widening, the question is no longer whether Diddy's legacy will survive. The real question is this: will the entire industry be forced to confront its darkest, most deeply buried secrets?
I thought was also interesting, and she said that after that first freak off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, "I know, you don't want to do it." And she said, "Oh no, well, it's not that." But that was the beginning. That was in
So where does that leave us? If Janice Combs' testimony is just the beginning, what else is waiting to be revealed? Will Victim 3 resurface? Or has she been silenced forever? And what about Cassie's rumored diary? The one insiders say could hold a key to understanding the full extent of Diddy's actions. Could that journal become the smoking gun that finally tears down the walls of silence? One thing is clear. This story is far from over. The bonds of silence are breaking. The fortress of loyalty is crumbling. And the truth? It's clawing its way into the light. So what comes next? Could we be standing at the edge of the music industry's biggest reckoning? Let us know what you think. And if you're following this story, don't look away now, because the next chapter may be the one that changes everything. Until then, stay curious, stay brave, and we'll see you soon.